non-rockabotus must stop. I don't want to rock the boat. I want to sink it.
Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite?
We're being delusional. I love you, Jeff.
Delusional, yeah. Delusional's okay in your worldview. I'm an animal. You don't chastise chickens for being delusional. You don't chastise pigs for being delusional. So you calling me delusional using your worldview is perfectly okay. It doesn't really hurt. She hung up on me.
What?
Desperate times call for faithful men and not for careful men. The careful men come later and write the biographies of the faithful men, lauding them for their courage.
Go into all the world and make disciples. Not go into the world and make buddies. Not to make brosives.
Right.
Don't go into the world and make homies.
Right.
Disciples.
I got a bit of a jiggle neck. That's a joke, Pastor.
When we have the real message of truth, we cannot let somebody say they're speaking truth when they're not.
Take an amazing journey to a place that will blow your mind and move your heart so you will never be the same again.
Remember this and stand firm. Recall it to mind, your transgressors. Remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, things not yet done, saying my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. That's Isaiah 46, 8 through 10. What is up, everybody? I almost nailed that. I was trying to get the timing right on that. Didn't quite get it. Welcome to Apologia Radio.
Just a quick moment of silence.
Just a quick moment of silence. At least it wasn't fast forward this time.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. It was ultra fast last time.
Still not sure how I did that. I am Luke the Bear, once again in the captain's chair. Pastor Jeff is actually on his way to Salt Lake City right now with Pastor Zach for the open house for Apologia, Utah, which is tomorrow night. So if you're in the area, please come by. I know we've been advertising that for a while. And come see what's going on there. And so to my left, I have Joy the girl.
Hello there.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Sweet.
I'm noticing we have some new angles.
Yeah, I see that. It's throwing me off. It's like the paparazzi.
I know. And I've got a little over-the-shoulder action, too.
Yeah.
For you.
Hopefully it...
Hopefully they can't see my screen.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
See me playing games.
Yeah, or no.
Just kidding.
See my private conversation.
Just kidding.
While I'm trying to talk. So I am very excited for today.
Me too.
I'm going to bring our guest in here in a minute. It's Uncle Gary, no surprise. He is up to some very exciting things that involve American history, which he's going to tell us about, because to be honest, I don't know what he's totally up to. I just know I've seen all these little like 30-second commercials he keeps dropping for a book that they're republishing, and the commercials are super awesome. And so I'm going to go ahead just right off the bat. I'm going to go ahead and play this. Actually, Isaac's going to play it, and we will bring Gary in and then see what he is up to. So Isaac, you want to go ahead and play that, dude?
Now, this isn't something you see every day. This is an exhibit with a lock of Washington's hair. It's right here, and there is this notation here original? Is this the original notation? Yes. That's cool. I don't know if that's cool or not, but it's a little more, because I think it was taken when he had died. Wasn't that it?
Yeah, that was
okay.
All right, I just love these. There's like, I don't know how many Gary's done. Like, there's been a number of them I've seen, and I'm like, just get super excited.
Yeah, I was watching them all this morning.
Yeah, super exciting. So, Uncle Gary, what's going on, brother?
Well, with these particular videos, Eric and I work together. We do the podcast together, and he kind of takes care of all the background stuff, the website. And what we decided to do was to go to Aledo, Texas, where David Barton's Wall Builders is, and help us promote this book, Christian Life and Character of the Civil Institutions of the United States. We just wanted to get some historical footage. They opened up their small museum to us, and I was just going around, commenting on things that I saw. One of them was Charlton Heston's makeup kit. The one that you just played was a lock of George Washington's hair that was clipped, after his death. And I was just making, kind of funny comments. One was a 44-pound cannonball that I sat down and picked up, and I used to throw the shot put in high school and college, and made a few comments about it. And we did a bunch of other things as well. And Wall Builders was really kind to us to take care of us. And I came back and I had all this footage, and I didn't really know what to do with it. So I called Darren Doan up and asked Darren what he had. Has created these little commercials for us, and they've been super popular. They're just real spontaneous things. There was no preparation for them. I saw something, I talked about it, and that was it. And there were a couple with David Barton. He's showing this sword, and I made a couple comments about that in the Three Stooges. Anyway, you have to watch them. So they were just a lot of fun to do, and they've become so popular that the plan is to do a lot more of these things on a whole bunch of other historical items out there that are just funny, popular. A lot of people don't know anything about them, and just do something that kids can like, and just enjoy, and to advertise this book that we're republishing for the 10th time, The Christian Life and Character of the Civil Institutions of the United States.
Wow. I saw one of them. You actually held George Washington's compass too, right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is he used that thing so much. This is a metal compass. He used it so much that there is a valley where his index finger would have been.
Wow.
That was the comment I made. I said he must have really used this thing. I was referring to this valley that was there. It just wore out the metal. So of course that was his profession, before and after the presidency. And he was a unique guy. In many eras, somebody who's the president of the United States becomes the president of this nation would have gone on a power trip, and he didn't do that. He went in, he did what he said he was going to do, and he left and just went back to work, and that's the way it ought to be. That's a very big change from what we see today.
Wow. Was that, just curious, the lock of his hair, was that his real hair or from his wig?
No, that was his real hair. Wow. And what Wall Builders has is the notation of the person who took provenance on this is very, very good. I don't know where they got it, but it's an actual lock of George Washington's hair.
So do they?
And his teeth are somewhere too. You can take a look at.
I have heard about that. Yeah. So, is it a private museum, or does it open to the public at all?
We were there, and they were. This was near the end of where they are. I think they're moving the whole thing to another place. Wow. It was really jam-packed full of stuff. And if you look at some of it, you'll see all the cases. We really had to maneuver around all the different artifacts they had. A lot of bookcases. They have a library full of historical material. In fact, this Christian Life and Character book that I had never seen an original copy of it. I had a Xerox copy of it.
Wow.
I had never seen an original copy of it. So that was the first time that I saw an original copy of this book that was published in 1864.
Wow.
And it's very, very difficult to find. I mean, if you go to a library, you're most likely not going to find it. But that was, again, I've had this Xerox copy for more than 25 years. And we completely retypeset the book, put subheads in it. It's over 1,000 pages of probably 80 to 85% of its original source documents. This was done in 1864. And this B.F. Morris, Benjamin Franklin Morris, started this in 1853. Now, this is before the internet. This is before types, modern day typesetting. He did all this by hand, copied all of these original documents.
Wow.
They had to be typeset by hand. It was really an amazing, amazing work. And so we really can't keep it in stock. And like I mentioned earlier, we have an order for 5,000 copies on our next printing, which we can't get to because printing companies are so backed up.
Oh my goodness. So how did you guys obtain it to begin with?
I have a good friend, Archie Jones, who wrote the modern introduction to this, and he's a historian, a scholar. We're going to be publishing his 2-volume work on the First Amendment, and as a result, he's in order to do his work, he had to go into libraries, and he came across this book, and he made a Xerox copy of it, and I have a copy of it, and then somebody transcribed this whole thing, typed it into a Word perfect document, and then we sent it. My youngest son did the typesetting on the new edition of it, and we had someone go through and put subheads in it, so it's a much more readable font, as well as subheads to kind of break up the ponderous text in here, because this is like an encyclopedia. This is before Google. This is before the internet.
Yeah.
It'd be very difficult for you to find this information unless you knew what to look for.
Right.
And he even has the bibliography in here of all the works that he used. The downside to this is it's not footnoted like I wouldn't want to do. The textual apparatus, the scholarly apparatus. I'd love to have a bunch of people to try to do that. But today, for example, I was going through it and preparing for the show, and I wanted to see if I said, I can't believe that Benjamin Franklin actually said this. And so I copied a little portion of it. I put it into Google, and there it was. The Benjamin Franklin that gave you the source, the letter that he wrote about this. So this guy did a tremendous job in a time when resources just weren't available as they are today.
Man, can you imagine going to Xeroxing 1,000 pages?
Yeah.
Well, I was just
time that would take.
Right. The amount of money, like how much? I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, double pages. So you put the book down, you get 2 pages, for the price of one. But I still have that Xerox copy. And let me tell you the story behind this, because it's really fascinating. This is a number of years ago. I was contacted by the local public broadcasting station. They had they'd gotten a copy of my God and Government books, plus the book I wrote called America's Christian History, The Untold Story. And they wanted to have a little debate around Thanksgiving about America's Christian heritage. And if you know anything about debates, especially something like this, you don't have a whole lot of time to get all your points across, especially when there are 2 or 3 people on the other side. Mm-hmm. So I brought a copy of that Xerox Christian Life and Character book with me. And I had it on my lap, and I could tell throughout the conversation that they were kind of wondering, what is this thing that he's holding in his lap? So here was the comment I made. I said, until you can answer the content of this book, you don't have a case. And they had never heard of this book either. And so I pulled it out, the show and tell, presented this right to this audience and all of this, and they were kind of in shock because what keeps the left going is ignorance.
Right.
And the way they can perpetuate their view is keeping people from the truth. And if you can demonstrate through original source documents to make your case, they can't do anything. This is what we're seeing with cancel culture going on today. They don't allow debate. They've taken their position, and anybody who disagrees with their position, they're not going to give them a forum for it. So that's why a book like this is extremely important, because it gives ammunition for people. For Christian. In fact, we ran some ads on Facebook, and all the crazies started, coming out. Mm-hmm. And I made the comment. I said, "You're making a comment about a book that you have never read.
Yeah.
You can't. You say, oh, they say America was never a Christian nation. Well, the book isn't coming out and saying that America is a Christian nation. It says this is a book about the Christian life and character of the civil institutions of the United States. How do you make that case? You make that case by laying out the facts, laying out the original source documents, and
Right.
that's what Morris did.
Wow.
And people don't like that. And these people commenting, I mean, just ignorant about the First Amendment and the separation between church and state. And I said, the First Amendment doesn't say anything about the separation between church and state.
Right.
The separation between church and state was a given. The colonies didn't want the state enforcing denominationalism, and the church didn't want to empower the federal government. So it was the states that decided they wanted a greater limitation on the civil government. And they said, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So the ignorance just kept coming out over and over and over again, and people started talking about this in the Constitution. I said, it's not in the Constitution. Started talking about education and government control of education. The word education isn't even found in the Constitution.
Right.
So we oftentimes lose because we just don't have the facts at our disposal, and most Christians can't defend their position.
So when you say there's original source documents, like does this book he actually puts like the text from these documents into the book?
Yes. He must have done that by hand.
Man.
One of the interesting things about Morris was he was a congregational pastor from Ohio.
Okay.
And then because I think of some poor health, I don't know why he moved to Washington, D.C., but he ended up moving to Washington, D.C. And I think one of his sons was actually involved in the library. So here the greatest library in the world, the Library of Congress, is in Washington, D.C. So he had access to all this material. And he lists all the books. I mean, it's a 2-page list of all of the books he used.
Wow.
So he had access to something that you and I wouldn't have. Now today, again, most of these documents are online, but you have to know what to look for. In those days, he had to look up everything. He had to write it out by hand, and then he had to send that to the typesetter, and the typesetter had to typeset it one letter at a time, and then send it back, and then proofread it, and then make corrections, and then on ancient presses, print this book in signatures, then sew the binding, put a hard cover. I mean, it's quite a job, at least compared. Today I can write a book, put it in InDesign, create a PDF, and send it to the printer. That's it. Right. I can copy and paste right from the internet. It's amazing. So, considering what he did in 1864, this is a monumental task.
That's amazing. So from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading some of the stuff on your website. So this book was the go-to book up until some point, and I'm assuming that it's kind of been exterminated from public libraries on purpose? ?
Well, I've looked in libraries, and this book just does not show up. Now, if you go online, today there are you can look up a book and it'll tell you what libraries a book is in. This book does not show up very much.
Wow.
And like I said, I didn't see an original copy of it until I went to Aledo, Texas, and Wall Builders, and David Barton's organization had 2 copies of it. And obviously the person who made the Xerox of it, I think it was out of a library, saw a copy of it.
Okay.
But I had never seen it. So this will be our 10th printing of this book. We originally printed it in 2007. And as I mentioned, we retypeset them. It's a beautiful font, and with the subheads and so forth. It's a beautifully crafted book. This is a 1,000-page Smythe sewn book. And a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of the hardback books you buy today are actually, the publishers are cheating you. You're getting a glorified paperback book. And what a Smythe sewn book is that hardback books aren't printed 1 page at a time. Paperback books of mass quantities aren't either. They're printed 36 pages at a time, 16 pages on one side, 16 pages on another. And then that's all folded. And what they do is they trim the top, they trim the right, they trim the bottom. And what you have is what's called a signature of 32 pages. So a book like this that's sewn in signatures is actually made up of a series of little books of 32 pages. And then those are sewn together So very, very good Bibles, if you look at very good Bibles, they're sewn. You can actually, if you open up a book and wide enough, you can kind of see the thread in there.
Okay.
And that, if you pick up a book that's what's called perfect binding, they always give nice names to things that are cheap. This is a perfect bound book. It's actually a paperback book where they actually cut off the ends. They're still printed in 32 pages, but they cut off the end and they glue it. And you may have gotten a paperback book, and you open, you read it, and all of a sudden it kind of cracks and the pages start falling out.
Yeah.
A book like this won't do that, and a very good Bible won't do that either, because each one of those 32-page signatures is sewn, and so it's all hinged as a single book, but it's smaller books hinged together by literally by thread.
Wow, I didn't plan on getting a history on bookmaking today either.
I know.
So thank you for that.
You never know with Uncle Gary.
Yeah, that is amazing. Okay, so just off the top of your head, what are some of the really fascinating original documents? Obviously, you saw a letter or something from Benjamin Franklin. Like, what else is in there that can maybe entice people to go buy this book?
And by the way, if you're interested in it, we do have some copies left before we go back to press. You can go to AmericanVision.org, and go to the store and just type in Christian Life and Character. And some of these things that people do not know. For example, the Constitution itself. A lot of people don't know this about the Constitution, but the Constitution has some very interesting parts into it that harken back to a Christian worldview. Mm-hmm. For example, the President of the United States has 10 days in which to sign a law, a bill into law. And so Congress, the House and the Senate, they agree, they send it up to the President. The President can veto it or he signs it into law. And he has 10 days to make that decision. But when you read what it says Sundays accepted. That means Sundays are, in fact, exempted from the 10 days. So the Constitution of the United States actually sets Sundays aside as a day of rest for the President of the United States. Huh. Another thing is that at the end of it, it says, this is done in the year of our Lord, 1787. So a lot of people say, oh, God isn't mentioned in the Constitution. Technically, that's correct. But if you compare the Constitution of the United States with, say, the French Declaration of the Rights of Man, the French Declaration of Rights of Man, they started with a brand new calendar with a new year one. They also took the calendar and they went from a 7-day week to a 10-day week.
No kidding.
We get the decimal system from the French. Everything was base 10. Mm-hmm. So instead of 7 days, they went 10 days. And instead of in the year of our Lord 1787, like in the Constitution, it's a new year one. And so the Constitution actually acknowledges the Christian calendar by making reference to in the year of our Lord. Yeah. There's also a reference in there to the Declaration of Independence in that same line, which means if you go back to the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Independence does in fact mention God in several places, that we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that God is the judge of the world. And so while the Constitution doesn't mention God outrightly, it does in fact make reference to things that you and I as Christians would immediately see. For example, on treason, you have to have 2 or 3 witnesses in order for somebody to be convicted of treason. In payment of debt, you had to have gold and silver. These are all biblical, come from biblical law. And the fact that the Constitution is a document of enumerated powers is again very specific to how the Bible works. It's not guesswork. Whatever the statement is in the Constitution, that is what the law is. It's the same thing in the Bible. Let it be written, let it be done.
Amazing. Joy, you want to ask any questions?
No, this is very cool.
Man, well, I'm going to get a copy. So
yeah, is it going to be available at Fight Laugh Feast?
Yes, he said he'll have a few copies.
Yeah, we'll have
few. Okay.
Hopefully you must be bringing those in like a forklift or something if you got a few copies.
Well, it's fun. It's kind of funny when people see a big book like that. What I'm describing to you, most people don't get to hear in order to see why this book is important. For example, you asked about some other things that are in there. In the lead up to the Declaration of Independence and the lead up to the Constitution, there were national days of prayer and thanksgiving that were signed by the president. And some of them are very specific in terms of our national sins, repentance, belief, the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ. You'll find this in all of these original documents, which, by the way, are online, and of course they're in this book. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that George Washington, took his oath of office with his hand on a Bible,
right,
which is not required to do. A lot of people don't realize that there was a worship service after all this took place in the inauguration of the president, swearing him into office. Another thing a lot of people don't realize is that on the day that they passed the First Amendment to the Constitution. Now, keep in mind, the First Amendment of the Constitution was not original to the Constitution. The first 10 amendments were not original to the Constitution. The Constitution was drafted in 1787. A lot of the states said, "Well, we like this enumerated power things, but we want some further prohibitions and certain absolutes put in there." And so they came up with what we know today as the first 10 amendments, which is the Bill of Rights. And so on the day that they passed the First Amendment, which secularists use to try to remove everything related to God out of everything, they thank God for giving them the opportunity to pass the amendment. So it's incongruous that here they are passing an amendment that would have excluded God and thanking God for excluding him. So what the First Amendment does, it keeps Congress from interfering in the states. And what you find in the Christian Life and Character book is a whole section on state constitutions. And if you were to go back and look at the original colonies and the constitutions, many of them were specifically Christian. Every constitution today, all 50 constitutions in their preamble mention God, the sovereignty of God, and so forth. There isn't a single constitution that doesn't mention God. But the state constitutions, for example, North Carolina's constitution stated that you could not hold public office in the state of North Carolina unless you believed in the inspiration of both the Old and the New Testaments. And the First Amendment did not prohibit that. That was not canceled as a result of the First Amendment. Now, over time, those things were taken out, but North Carolina's constitution, held that in there or something close to that all the way up until the midpoint of the 19th century.
Wow, that's amazing, man. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to pick up.
Well, and it's so important that, you think about what's the guy that originally compiled all this? What's his name? Morris?
B.F. Morris, Benjamin Franklin Morris.
But just think about it was a different time, so he had to go through a lot more to preserve this. But obviously it still needs to be preserved. Yeah. And like you said, Gary, it's even nice to have it in a better font and maybe with some, modernized to the point where it's a little easier for us modernized to read.
Right.
But I was reading it was sort of like an about me section about a publisher, the people that did that Scottish Covenanter book.
Oh yeah.
And they were talking about how just a lot of Christian history and the documentation has been sort of misplaced, but almost just out of apathy, like not really caring about it. But they specifically said the reason they were trying to preserve that is because they thought that it could create a revival. And I'm assuming, Gary, that that's sort of a similar reason as to why you guys have put time into preserving this too. So
this is if you go, you have to remember why you have to ask the question: why did Morris do this?
Right.
I mean, this is the guy who had a job, and he did this on his spare time. Which, by the way, let me tell you, we're lazy. Think about what this guy did.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
totally.
and you look at some of the works of ministers who wrote full commentaries on the entire Bible with not even a ballpoint pen, but
Right.
a pen that you dipped in ink and had scratch it all out, different languages and all that sort of thing. But the reason Morris did this was because he saw, and he started this in 1853. He saw what was happening in the country. There was the rise of Unitarianism, Transcendentalism, of course, the rationalism with the Enlightenment, because Christianity is kind of like all those who were coming out of Egypt. It was a mixed bag of people involved in all this. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, John Adams. They would call themselves ethical or moral Christians. Remember, it was Thomas Jefferson who took the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and took out all the miracles and left in just the moral teachings of Jesus. And so even Jefferson, who was not a Christian, understood the moral implications of a Christian worldview. And George Washington, it's hard to tell what his commitment was to Christ. I think John Adams was more of a Unitarian, but John Quincy Adams, of course, was not. He was a devout Christian. And you have others who were first Supreme Court. John Jay, the first Supreme Court Justice of the Supreme Court, was a committed Christian. Elias Boudinot wrote a book answering Thomas Paine's book, The Age of Reason. Boudinot came out with a book called The Age of Revelation. So it was a mixed bag back then. And what was happening over time, as Morris began to see that people were losing their grounding in the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And so he put all this together to help people say, hey, look, so 1853, I mean, that's you're looking at two generations from 1776. How quickly, I talk to people all the time, and I was at the dentist today and talking to a young lady who was there, and I'm bringing up these things, and she had never heard these things before. And I'm sure most public schools today, these types of things, just aren't taught. And this stuff really isn't taught. I mean, if you were to bring this book into a public school classroom and decide to teach through it, you would have the ACLU, Americans United Separation of Church and State, to come down on you with both feet.
Right. Totally.
For actual documents from the United States history.
Right.
Yeah. Or to point out in the Constitution, say, look what it says there, done in the year of our Lord, 1787. Well, wait a minute. Who's that? Maybe that's Hare Krishna that they're talking about.
Yeah.
My sweet Lord.
Yeah, right.
But again, there was one particular fellow. I'm writing a new book on jurisdictions, governmental jurisdictions, and he was a teacher in a classroom. All he did was just put up original documents from American history of a religious bent, and he was told not to do that anymore. I think he was even fired from his position. Wow. He had been a teacher there for like 25 years.
Insane.
Well,
so one quick question. So do you happen to know if like the original documents, do they still exist? Like, are they in the Library of Congress, or are these original documents, a lot of them just gone?
I think there a lot of them are still around. My guess is there may be a lot of them in the Library of Congress. You can go to the Library of Congress. When I did research for my God and Government books on images, Library of Congress has a huge image collection. You can go up there and for that. I'm sure a lot of these documents are available. Keep in mind that a lot of these things that we have today were like posters. They were declarations that the president signed. So they're most likely in the archive somewhere. But they're all online today. There are pictures of them online.
I got you.
And so they're there.
Gotcha.
And also there were today when a president would give up and give a State of the Union address, today they go into the Hall of Congress. It's there's cameras there. It's publicized. They didn't do that. They printed it in newspapers, and so they have newspaper clippings. But when we were at Wall Builders, they have a number of original source documents. There are people who collect this stuff.
Amazing.
And well, the thing about Washington's hair, that lock of hair was original hair, and the description of, hey, I was there when this was done, it was the original document. It wasn't a copy of it.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What did it? Wait, you just got to see that, but you would touch the compass.
Well, if you look at the video, he's like, holy, it's like in like a sleeve.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
the hair is in a little plastic bag, and then the information about the provenance, the declaration of what this was in there too. Now the compass, yes, that was out there, and I held the compass and so forth. I went through, looked at picked up all kinds of things that they have there, and Wall Builders is a small small museum. I mean, you go into Washington D.C. and go to these museums. It's amazing what's available. In fact, we have an art museum not too far from here, up in Cartersville, Georgia, and they have kind of the Hall of the Presidents, and they have original documents, letters from each of the president for each of the presidents. If you ever watch Pawn Stars, people will come in with signed documents, and you'll find out by these experts, and they'll say, after a certain period of time, they had this, secretary actually signing these things. There's a particular date when you look at original documents that they were probably signed by someone else, but the earliest documents are actually signed by the presidents or the Secretary of State, or whatever the case might be, and those are in collections. So they're all available. And images are all over the internet. You go through this book and pick up a little phrase and just type it in, put quotation marks around it, and the document will probably come up.
Gotcha. Okay, so you may have done a video on this already, but what was your most favorite artifact you saw at Wall Builders?
Oh, wow.
I stumped him.
I don't. That's hard to say. I'm not a big artifacts guy. And so look at this. This is amazing. The Washington's hair was kind of That's kind of strange. Charlton Heston's makeup kit I thought was kind of
that's pretty cool too.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
This I don't know if you have the one with the sword.
I saw it. Yeah.
That David Barton was explaining this sword and how it worked, and the two different sides of the sword, and then and how that if you put it into the sand, it had a little V at the top where they would put their rifle in it to keep it out of the sand. And then he said, then you could turn around and poke that in, somebody's eyes. And I made this comment, well, that's, Three Stooges, where Moe was always poking Curly in the eye with a stooge. Anyway, it is fascinating to see all this. I guess since I've seen so much of it over the years, I don't want to say I'm jaded by it all, but finding an original copy of Superman #1, I think might fascinate me more.
Have you?
No, I haven't. In fact, I just sold my comic book, my Fantastic Four comic book collection, and I did have an original first issue of Fantastic Four #1. But when I think about it, Superman #1, Action Comics #1, which is what it was, Action Comics #1. It sells for over $1 million.
Wow!
And if you've ever seen the movie The Accountant with was it Ben Affleck? Have you ever seen that movie?
I have not, but I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's an accountant for some of the drug dealers and all kinds of people all over the world. He had this. He was an autistic. The character's autistic. Remember, he just can keep numbers in his head. And he got paid in gold bars, silver bars, and artwork and comic books.
Wow.
And he goes into his Airstream he's got to get out of town again, and you see him pull out a Action Comics #1, which was today it may sell for like $2 million, or Honus Wagner baseball card is a couple of million dollars.
Yeah,
that stuff goes it actually sells more than it does original source documents.
Yeah,
a lot of Abraham Lincoln stuff sells very well. If you
some people are more
keep an eye out
popular
for that.
than others. Well, I was going to ask you, do you have a favorite museum ever of all time?
Well, the one in the Air and Space Museum up in D.C. is the one I love.
Okay.
I like this. I want to see how things work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really big into mechanical things, and so you can go there and see one of the original Wright flyers.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the place. I'd love to be kind of a tour guide through there, because my kids were really young. I was pointing out all these things. And one thing about the Wright brothers, his historical note, their father was a Christian minister.
Really?
And the Wright brothers would not fly their plane on the Sabbath.
Did not know
so because they would do exhibitions around the country, and when it came to Sunday, no, we don't fly it on the Sabbath.
Wow.
So
interesting.
So that's my favorite museum. And the one I grew up with is the one that's in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon, the Carnegie Museum.
Okay.
And Andrew Carnegie used a lot of his money for museums and public libraries.
Oh, interesting.
So all the money that he made in the steel industry, he was a philanthropist, better than almost anyone in the world.
Wow.
And so Pittsburgh has a wonderful museum, and that's the first time I had ever seen a dinosaur fossil, the complete dinosaur. That was back in the early 1960s that I saw that.
Wow, very cool. All right, so any other questions on that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to take a shift here then, and talk about American history. We'll talk about current American history, and
as in history, as in the last week, or so.
As we're forming American history. So I had talked to Gary. I said, hey, if we have time, let's talk about Afghanistan, if we have any time at all, and so I've been thinking a lot about this. We got to hear more and more stories coming on. We did it. We had I just lost his name. Ron Paul. Thank you, Joy. That look she gave me. She telecommunicated.
I was really trying to. I was like, who is
the prophet.
Yeah.
Ron Paul, the prophet.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it, but a lot of stuff's come out since then, and my biggest thing that I've been just thinking a lot about the last few days is just the morality behind how this is being handled. Not just logistically, because obviously it's a logistical nightmare what we're doing, but morally, I'm just appalled. And today I was thinking about it, and I'm just gonna throw this out here. So this is the verses that we use for the abortion mill. Proverbs 24:10-12. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. If you say, behold, we did not know this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who keep watch over your soul know it? And will he not repay man according to his work? So that's a verse that we always use. We need to be at the abortion mill rescuing babies. But I was thinking about that today. I was just, of all the innocent lives that are going to be lost or have been lost due to the incompetence of our White House, our current White House, is just there's definitely a moral failure and responsibility as I see it. So I'm just curious, Gary. I'm going to throw that out there and see what you think about that, Gary.
Well, I'm a non-interventionist. The original goal of going into Afghanistan was to hunt down the people who did 9/11. That was the original goal. And this is always the excuse that they use. Oh, we're going to go in there and do this one thing, and then we'll fix this nation. Right. We'll fix this nation. We'll be able to show we're the mighty United States of America. We'll fix this nation. So we've been in there for 20 some years. Think of that, 20 some years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you can't fix nations like this.
Right.
And this is the same thing happened in Iraq. I remember when the whole Iraq war was going on, this idea of weapons of mass destruction. Look, the Soviet Union has had weapons of mass destruction for, just as long as we have.
Yeah.
We didn't go in and intervene there. Why did we go into Iraq to do this? Iraq wasn't bothering us. And look, this goes back a long way. This isn't anything new. So there's something you can't blame Biden for.
Right.
Biden didn't get us in. Oh no, he was in the Senate, of course, and approved this.
Right.
But he's been in the Senate for 40 years. They could have under Obama. They had 8 years to get out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Trump was working on getting us out of Afghanistan. And by the way, they had a list of everything that needed to be done, at the time of year that this should have been done, a log of all the equipment and so forth and so on. So you can't blame Trump for this fiasco. So this goes back to Woodrow Wilson. I mean, Woodrow Wilson and his interventionist politics of we're going to make the world safe for democracy. We're going to spread democracy all over the world. Look, democracy has been the bane of the founding of America from the beginning. Our founding fathers did not support democracy.
Mm-hmm.
They supported certain democratic elements.
Right.
But they kept out pure democracy.
Right.
So you go over to Afghanistan, we're going to say, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to secure the nation, and then we're going to put everything up for an election, and then the people, 80% of the people decide, well, they want Islamic law as to be the law of the land. Well, what are you going to do? This has been a problem from the beginning.
Yep.
We have been interventionists, and we're causing some of our own
Yes.
problems.
Right.
We have military bases all over the world. World War II really grew out of World War One, and World War One was a huge fiasco that we never should have been involved in. And now I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty here with this.
Good.
Christians are some of the biggest problems in all this.
Yeah.
They like this interventionist stuff.
Yeah. I agree.
And look, I think it's necessary to have a military in this day and age. You need a military. I have a friend in high school. He's 4 years younger than I am. He could bench press 435 pounds. He was a Pennsylvania State champion 3 years in a row. And shot put was a national champion. And guess what? Ron never got into any fights. They knew that they weren't going to win. So it's good to have a strong military, but you are not going to change nations through military intervention.
Right.
It just doesn't work. And unfortunately, and I know here I am going to talk about eschatology again.
That's okay.
But this is all part of this idea that the military, the rise of the military and the enemies abroad is all a last days phenomenon that has to be dealt with. And so we want to intervene. I mean, you got Christians out there. Yeah, we need to go in there and just bomb them into oblivion.
Yeah.
And we as Christians, Gary North wrote a book called Healer of the Nations. We should be about healing the nations.
Yes.
The gospel should be going in. Business people should be going in. Business people make the best ambassadors. And if you go in there as a business person and with the gospel, you're going to make a much better impact and most long-lasting impact. But if everybody is our enemy,
yeah,
Bible says we're supposed to love our enemies. You can't love your enemies if you're bombing them into oblivion. And majority of these people in Afghanistan, I hear all these refugees, tens of thousands of refugees. Why do they want to leave? They don't want the Taliban in there either.
Right.
But we went in there with a very secularized view of foreign policy, and that goes all the way back to Woodrow Wilson. Think about Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson's father was a Presbyterian, and what Woodrow Wilson did, he secularized postmillennialism. That's what he did. He secularized, and we talk about the social gospel.
Yeah.
They secularized the gospel. And then with the rise of dispensationalism during that period of time and so forth, and there was a book by Dwight Wilson that was written a number of years ago. By the way, we'll have some copies of that up in Tennessee, Lebanon, Tennessee. It's called Armageddon Now. And it goes through the history of eschatology, which this is a really frightening thing. There were lots of Christian organizations during the time of when it was happening to the Jews, where a lot of Christians took what was described as a hands-off approach, because they saw this as some time of end-time event. Because according to dispensationalism, and I know some of dispensationalists probably don't know this, but according to their view, during the Great Tribulation, 2/3 of the Jews living in Israel are going to be slaughtered. And so when they saw persecution taking place of Israel, many of them saw that as a prelude to the end and the rise of Antichrist, which was easy to do with Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. So this is a real mixed bag. And what we really need is a Christian foreign policy that is gospel first, and not guns first.
Right.
Look, there are lots of evil people in the world, no doubt about that. But you're not gonna force them into submission by military might. We know this. We know that transformation takes place through the gospel. I mean, the Roman Empire today, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, are tourist attractions today. Christianity swept Europe and transformed Europe. And unfortunately, what we did is that we divided the gospel. We said, well, the gospel applies over here to regenerate the heart, but the rest of the world, we don't need God's word in order to do that. So we left that to the secularists, and now we're paying the price for it. And so, I mean, but that's my rant for.
Oh, I appreciate that a ton. I mean, in Biden's defense, he's been asleep for the last 4 years, so I don't know.
Yeah, I tell you, my wife, she just laments how, his wife is letting him out there. She's never should have let him run for public office.
I know.
I told Carol. Yeah,
I told the same thing.
Yeah, I told Carol. When we would go on cruises, and we'd often see people in wheelchairs and canes and everything. And I said, Carol, I'm telling you something. Don't ever think you're going to talk me into going on a cruise if I'm in a wheelchair. And so if I start losing my mind, don't ever let me write another book again. But to be president of the United States in his mental state, come on, give me a break.
Did you see the clip the other day when he was with the Israeli prime minister? And
no.
He literally was sitting next to him in the Oval Office, and he was asleep. And the prime minister was looking at him, looking at everyone else. Like, kudos to him, because he kept his cool and just kept talking. And Biden was literally had his head down. He was sound asleep. And I'm like, my goodness gracious.
And so, which means there are other people behind the scenes pulling the strings of all of this. And let me tell you something. These people are incompetent.
Yeah.
They are, almost every liberal is incompetent because they are built up in their own delusions that they think they really believe they have answers to everything.
Yeah.
And they don't. They may have high IQs, they may have gone to some of the most prestigious colleges in the country, but they are ignorant and incompetent when it comes to the way the real world works. Right. Almost no one in Congress today is a business owner. They have no idea how business works.
Yep.
And you can tell by this rent moratorium thing. We'll just say you don't have to pay your rent for a while.
Yeah.
And then while the people who own these properties, who have mortgages on the property of the banks, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
These people are idiots. They're just idiots.
I know. Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. So let's go. I thought you were going to say.
I was just going to say, I think the incompetence is proven by the fact that when selecting a puppet, they picked someone who obviously is a puppet. Like, if they're trying to do stuff behind the scenes with Biden, just at least pick someone who stays awake during
I think they ended up they got caught. I think they.
Yeah, I agree.
When he started running, he was in pretty good shape. He did pretty well in some of the debates, and they'll probably said, well, he has some problems here, but he's our guy, and he was an establishment guy, and a lot of the establishment money went behind him, and he knew that. Well, the very fact that he's keeping his son. What his son was doing and all that. He knew all this was going on. So I firmly believe they didn't realize that he was going to decline as rapidly. Quickly as he has. And let me tell you, as you get older, when I'm speaking from experience here, when you get overwhelmed with so much information, you just can't. You can't comprehend it all. You can't pull it all in. You need a fresh mind, and you need other good fresh minds around you that you can trust. And he doesn't have a fresh mind, and he doesn't have people around him you can trust. These military leaders is an obvious example of it.
Right.
So,
did you see the other day there was I think it was a press conference on Afghanistan, and it got down to the end of it, and he started to go off script, and he's basically like, so I'm going to close with this, and then literally it was just like, blue screen, and it was like White House logo. Like, they totally just cut him off. They're like, nope.
I think because he was about to say something that would have been hard to explain. I forget what it was that he did. The reporters came back and said, look, this is what he was. And in fact, I think it's the comment he made, I've been told I need to do this or that.
Oh, yes.
So he's been.
Yep. There you
they
go.
want him, and Pelosi doesn't. Pelosi was caught on mic saying, "No, we don't want him to talk. We don't want him to talk."
Yeah.
That basement strategy was the best strategy they had, and so they made everything about Trump, and Biden got a pass, and now I think 60% of the people want him to resign. I don't want him to resign. I want him to stay in there as long as I don't want the alternative right now. He can stand. So.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, just real quick, because I know you got to get going here, but speaking of the military incompetence, so this was the one thing I saw the other day that just I heard it. I was listening to a podcast and I was like, I can't believe we did that. Besides handing over thousands of vehicles and weapons. But like, I guess we have handed everything over to the Taliban in Afghanistan. We're out. We pulled the military. We left everything behind. And I guess they were like, oh, and here's the list of people that we need you to let out. So now they have everyone, their names, who they are, their identities. Like, these are our people. Can you please let them leave? And so now, like, if I was the Taliban, I'd be like, no. We're actually those are the people we want to kill.
Look, we're back to the Iranian hostage situation during Jimmy Carter's administration. And let me look. You guys are too young for any of this. But let me tell you what happened. A lot of people don't remember this, and a lot of people don't know this because they weren't around. As soon as Ronald Reagan was sworn into office, the plane with the hostages on him left Iran. Why? Because they feared Ronald Reagan. Nobody fears Joe Biden anymore.
Right.
And now Iran again is going to ramp up. North Korea is starting their nuclear program again. You got China. He's always had its eyes on Taiwan. So the everything's out of balance right now, and now we've got Joe Biden. And oftentimes, what happens is, in order to it's kind of like driving down the road and overcorrecting. You overcorrect and you end up crashing. Yeah. The overcorrection problem here is oftentimes a military overcorrection. Yeah. And that would be the worst thing in the world for us.
Well, sounds like we're gonna have to send Dennis Rodman back over to North Korea to smooth things out.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work.
I mean, I trust him more than Biden at this point.
Maybe. Yeah.
Man. Well, thank you so much, brother, for being on, and you will be at Fight Laugh Feast next week, as will we. I think is the correct way to say that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get my hands on this book. But you said it kind of hides in plain sight.
Here's what you guys need to do. Just send me your address, Send me your address, both of you, and I will send you copies.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's sweet.
So,
Okay.
so nice.
Okay, again, anybody wants to order the book, you can go to AmericanVision.org, go to the store button, click on that, and then just type in Christian Life and Character, and it'll come up, and you can buy it directly from us. But you send me your addresses, I'll make sure you
You're
get
the
copies.
best. You are the
That's
best.
so very nice.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Again, you guys can go to AmericanVision.org to get that and all other manners of books that they have. Oh, that's my timer. It's saying the time's up. So thank you again, Gary, and we will see you next week.
All righty. Looking forward to it.
See ya. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for another great episode. Man, I love him
Something you said
so much.
made me think of something. We need to Rand and Ron Paul, they should have a podcast called Appalled where they just talk about what's going wrong and how they would fix it.
Only
right?
Only if Rand can be a little hero baby. Remember?
Yeah.
You'll have to go back and see the episode if you want to know what that.
But yeah, so I don't know if any of you guys know him. Just let him know. That's
yeah,
what
it's a good idea. I like
expecting.
it. I like it a lot. So as I mentioned, Fight Left Feast next week. We love our guys across Politics Studios.
I'm very excited.
I am super excited. Last year was.
I've
so
never
much
been,
fun.
but I've heard
Yeah.
that it's a very.
It's fun.
It's a great time. Very
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yep. So, yeah, and we're gonna have. I've mentioned it. You can go to reformcon.org. We.
That will also be fun.
That will be.
It's just not happening next week.
No, it's happening in May 2022. It just sounds. It's hard to say.
May 2022.
I think it's 22nd too. It's May 2022.
I just feel like I saw this meme that said something to the effect of, I'm still processing what happened in 2020.
Oh yeah.
And now it's about to be 2022.
It's crazy.
So like, what happened?
Yeah, I know. It was a blur. But Uncle Gary will be there.
Yes.
He's going to be speaking there, so I'm excited. He will be doing the theme is by the standard, and so he will be talking about government. So I'm excited for that. And what else? Oh, I'm actually going to, as a reminder to everyone, September 25th in Harrisburg. I sound like Gru. Harrisburg. The Capitol in Pennsylvania, September 25th, we will be having a rally to end abortion there. We got an abolition bill that we are helping to support. So if you're in Pennsylvania, that area, you can come. We're going to play the promo again at the end here. So you can check that out. So we'd love to have your support. I also just got word yesterday that there's another bill we should be doing in another state.
Oh.
But I'm not going to mention it yet until we have more confirmation on that. But we can add another state to the list. So I'm very excited about that. So you can go to endabortionnow.com and support our work there to end abortion.
The plan is to just cross it off state by state, right?
That's the plan.
Yep.
That is the plan. And so, yeah, thank you again, everyone, for your support. I know we say it every week, and I hope it doesn't get old, but we mean it. None of this happens. Even, I don't know, we had some new cameras. I don't know if those shots actually got put into the show or not. I didn't see. But
yeah,
we maybe just be testing those. But
no, they're in there.
Oh, the paparazzi shots are in. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your support. You can go to apologiastudios.com to sign up for all access, which helps us keep the lights on. And you can also sign up for a free account at Bonsenu, not Bronson, BAHNSENU.com. Very cool stuff going on there as well. And I think that's all that I've got. Anything from you?
All for now.
Okay. Peace out, everyone, and enjoy this promo.
I want to announce to you this. It is now March. I've been now involved in 4 different bills for abolition. Arizona, Oklahoma, Texas, South Carolina are all happening by March. And it's the pro-life industry that has fought against all of these. The pro-choice movement had barely needed to lift a finger.
If your senator and your representative do not know you by name, you have not done enough for abolition. That's all there is to it.
still live in a nation where it is the easiest, that probably has been in Earth history, to change the law as a citizen. It is the easiest for you. Shame on us if we fail.
This is the premier issue of justice in our nation. We have no right to ask God to bless our nation while we continue to slaughter children in our streets.